A wealthy man discovers a street child dancing with his paralyzed daughter. A young boy without shoes or food found his way past the entrance of a grand estate and noticed the wealthy man's daughter seated in stillness. Her expression was heavy with sorrow. Then he did something nobody anticipated. He started to dance, not seeking money, not hoping for a meal, but purely to bring joy to her face. What unfolded after that moment would transform all of their destinies forever. Chief Adebayo Okonkwo was among the most affluent men in Lagos. His business empire stretched across petroleum, property development, and maritime trade, earning him the title the Midas, because every venture he touched flourished into prosperity. Yet within the tall walls of his Victoria Island estate, his deepest pain was not commercial. It was the quietness of a child whose joy he yearned to witness once more. His only child, Chioma, once a vibrant, spirited 8-year-old, had been left unable to walk after the devastating yacht explosion that also took the life of his cherished wife, Ngozi. Once her giggles echoed through the corridors like sweet melody. Once she ran across the lawns pursuing dragonflies, but now she remained motionless in her wheelchair, gazing through the windows, her energy dimmed. Initially, Chief Adebayo attempted to overcome it with his fortune. He transported her to London for operations, to Switzerland for rehabilitation, to America for cutting-edge procedures. Each effort concluded in the same heartbreaking failure. Chioma's smile vanished. Her giggles ceased. She barely emerged from her chambers except when her caregiver brought her into the courtyard. Chief Adebayo, though commanding and stern before the world, felt his soul shattering each sunrise. He observed her staring emptily into space. But one humid afternoon, something unforeseen occurred. Chioma sat peacefully in the courtyard, her gaze locked on the entrance ahead, absorbed in her thoughts. She detected motion from the side. A child, without footwear and in tattered clothing, crept silently through a narrow opening beside the bougainvillea hedge. His singlet was ripped, his trousers too loose for his slim build. His hair was unkempt, and his knees marked from existence on the pavements. But when he gazed at Chioma, his face brightened with playfulness. Then, without speaking, he started to dance. Not a refined dance, not the type you witnessed in recordings or on television. His movements were dramatic and amusing. His limbs swung like a masquerader's, his frame twisting and turning in ways that appeared comical. Initially, Chioma simply stared. Then a soft chuckle escaped her mouth. The child widened his eyes and acted like he was slipping, steadying himself theatrically. Chioma clapped her palms, and then, like something divine, she laughed. It wasn't a polite chuckle or a reluctant giggle. It was genuine, unrestricted laughter that resonated throughout the estate. The child smiled broadly and danced with more energy, twirling, leaping, tumbling on the lawn like an entertainer on display. Chioma's laughter intensified. His name was Tunde. At least that's the identity he offered when strangers inquired. Nobody understood his complete background because he seldom discussed it. What neighbors in the area did understand was that Tunde had no residence. Some evenings he rested under the overpass near the motor park. Other evenings he found corners of incomplete structures where he could shelter. He had no parents anyone had witnessed, no relatives, and no mattress except the harsh cement ground. Tunde had one possession that sustained him, his spirit. When starvation was intense and rest wouldn't arrive, he danced. When riders yelled at him for asking at the traffic signals, he danced. He danced for passers-by on the avenue, and occasionally they handed him a few naira notes. Dancing made him feel present. It granted him happiness even in his hardship. His gestures were his language, his protection, his method of fleeing the anguish of being unwelcome. That afternoon, Tunde was roaming past the wealthy man's estate. He glimpsed through a tiny gap in the entrance and spotted Chioma seated peacefully nearby. Her small face lay against the support of her wheelchair, her gaze fixed mournfully on the earth. Something stirred within Tunde. He reflected, I understand what sorrow resembles. But if I dance for her, perhaps I can bring a smile to her face. Perhaps, just perhaps, I can drive her sadness away. So Tunde slipped silently through the hedge and entered into the courtyard. He started to dance, making foolish expressions and contorting his frame in absurd, exaggerated gestures. When Chioma laughed, it felt to him like a triumph greater than discovering sustenance after an endless day of hunger. Her laughter made his pulse quicken. He danced with more intensity, more wildness, each clap and chuckle from her providing him fresh vigor. In those valuable moments, Tunde forgot that he was barefoot, starving, and without a shelter. He wasn't a beggar or a child from the avenue. He was merely a youngster spreading happiness to another youngster. What Tunde did not comprehend was that he wasn't only making Chioma laugh, he was transforming her existence and his own eternally. Inside the estate, Chief Adebayo Okonkwo heard it. He became still. He hadn't heard that noise in many moons. He rushed to the veranda, anticipating to witness something miraculous. And in a sense, he did. His daughter was laughing, applauding, her face animated once more. And the origin of her happiness was not medication, not rehabilitation, not wealth. It was a homeless child dancing barefoot in his estate. From the veranda, Chief Adebayo's initial feeling was fury. How had this ragged street child penetrated his estate? Where were the security men? What if he posed danger? Chief Adebayo's hands tightened. He nearly shouted out, prepared to dismiss the child immediately. But then he observed Chioma. Her face was colored with enthusiasm. Her limbs were gesturing, clapping with vigor he hadn't witnessed in moons. Her posture, typically slumped, was erect, and her laughter, boisterous, unrestrained, brimming with vitality, saturated the atmosphere. Chief Adebayo froze in position. For moons, he had invested millions pursuing physicians and procedures, only to witness his daughter descend deeper into darkness. Now, in under 10 minutes, this barefoot child had restored her to existence. Chief Adebayo didn't comprehend it. He didn't believe it. But he couldn't refute what he was observing. He concealed himself behind one of the granite columns of the estate, watching quietly. His chest constricted, not with fury this occasion, but with something he had nearly forgotten: hope. As the child danced and Chioma applauded, Chief Adebayo recognized something astonishing. This street child was accomplishing for his daughter what all his fortune could not. Tunde returned the following afternoon, the identical way he arrived the first occasion: silent, swift, and expectant. He didn't sneak because he desired to take. He arrived because he now held a small purpose in his soul: make Chioma laugh once more. He had rested behind a kiosk the previous evening, belly groaning. But he awakened with a grin. He had discovered something larger than starvation: meaning. As he slipped through the hedge, he spotted her waiting by the entrance, face glowing, palms already prepared to clap. "Are you prepared?" he questioned, raising his limbs like a carnival performer. Chioma chuckled and affirmed. Before he could begin, Chief Adebayo stepped forward. For an instant, Tunde froze. He recognized that expression: adult rage that arrives before a beating or a kick to the road. He held his air, ready to flee if necessary. Choma's tone broke the strain. "Papa, please don't dismiss him. Please." Chief Adebayo studied the child up close for the first occasion. The singlet was ripped at the shoulder. The trousers hung on a waist too narrow. The child was barefoot with marks on his knees that narrated tales no youngster should have to narrate. But his gaze was firm. Not bold, not fragile, just firm. "What is your identity?" Chief Adebayo questioned. "Tunde," the child responded. "Why did you enter here?" Tunde swallowed. "I spotted her. She appeared sorrowful the first day. I considered perhaps, if I danced, she would laugh.
I didn't arrive to take anything, sir. I only arrived to offer something small. I can depart after. The phrases were simple, but they penetrated into Chief Adebayo like rainfall on parched soil. Where do you reside? Chief Adebayo questioned, gentler now. Anywhere, Tunde said. Motor park? Sometimes I dance for small money. Sometimes I just dance for myself, so hunger won't triumph. Choma's face filled. He brings me happiness, Papa. Chief Adebayo glanced at his daughter. Her face was radiant, her posture straight. He noticed her toes shift. It might have been minor, but it was a gesture he hadn't witnessed in moons. He took a breath. All right, you can remain for today in the open where I can observe you. No misconduct. Do you comprehend? Tunde nodded swiftly, relief washing over his expression. He turned to Chioma with a smile. Performance time? He questioned. She applauded. And just like that, the courtyard became a platform again. One day transformed into 3. 3 transformed into a week. The security men were instructed not to prevent the child anymore. Permit him in at 4. He departs at 6. He consumes before he goes.
Tunde appeared each day with fresh concepts. He danced like a whirling top. He narrated amusing tales from the motor park. He performed quarrels between moto drivers and their conductors. He created sound impressions, collapsed theatrically, rose magnificently, bowed like an oba, and then crossed his vision until Chioma's laughter shook her shoulders. It wasn't just laughter. Something else was transpiring. Chioma's palms grew more powerful from clapping. She began raising her limbs to imitate Tunde's gestures. Her tone grew more assured. She instructed him once more and, no, perform it like yesterday. She even attempted to rotate her wheelchair in small rounds when he spun on the lawn. And every small rotation felt like victory. Chief Adebayo observed all of this silently. He noticed the minor details. How Tunde never requested anything before performing. How he always examined Chioma's expression before attempting a jest. How he anticipated nothing but claps. Yet when sustenance was presented, he consumed gently, like someone who understood what it signified to consume once daily. In the evenings after Tunde departed, Chioma spoke more than previously. Papa, did you observe the one where he acted like an area boy running from Lastama? Papa, today I sensed something in my toes. Papa, can he arrive tomorrow? The physician examined her during a scheduled hospital appointment and was amazed. Her participation is restored, he said, examining her closely. This type of inspiration can ignite recovery channels. We cannot always clarify. Whatever you're doing, maintain it going. Maintain it. That evening, Chief Adebayo stood solitary in the courtyard, gazing at the area where Tunde danced. He sensed something he hadn't sensed in an extended period. Appreciation that didn't arrive from a business transaction. He whispered into the humid atmosphere. Appreciation, child. And though nobody was present to perceive it, the courtyard seemed to agree. It transpired on an ordinary afternoon, the type of day when you don't anticipate miracles. The sun set low, the hedge cast gentle shadows on the grass, and a radio somewhere was broadcasting an old Fela tune. Tunde was mid-performance, executing his slow-motion dance where he gestured as if time had become dense and thick. Chioma laughed so intensely she forgot to secure her wrapper in position. Wait, she said, regaining her breath. Permit me to try something. She placed both palms on the supports of her wheelchair. Her face tightened with struggle. For a pulse, nothing transpired. Then her shoulders elevated. Then her chest. Then gradually her waist lifted an inch. Then 2. She maintained trembling for 3 extended counts. 1, Tunde whispered, face wide. 2, Chief Adebayo counted, advancing forward without comprehending it. 3, Chioma breathed, before descending back into the seat, breathing and smiling, face moist. Stillness descended over the courtyard. It was not the previous stillness, the oppressive one. It was a sacred stillness, the type that arrives after a petition is answered in a manner you did not anticipate. Tunde shattered it with a yell. "You accomplished it! You accomplished it!" He rotated 3 occasions and collapsed to his knees beside her. "Champion!" Chief Adebayo knelt on the opposite side, his palms trembling. He contacted his daughter's forehead lightly. "You are courageous," he said. "I am so honored of you." Chioma reached for both of them, one small palm for her father, one for her companion. "I'm not frightened anymore," she said. "When he dances, I sense like I can gesture." They didn't inform the world. Not yet. They didn't broadcast it or contact the newspapers. They simply continued. More laughter, more practice, more tiny gestures that accumulated to something substantial. That evening, Chief Adebayo couldn't rest. He walked the lengthy corridors of his estate, his footsteps resonating against the granite floors. He reflected on his daughter, her radiant face when Tunde entered, her more powerful tone when she called out for him. Then he reflected on his dignity, his reputation, his title. It was a conflict inside his chest, between dignity and affection, between what the world anticipated and what his soul was instructing him. By sunrise, Chief Adebayo recognized something. Status couldn't restore his daughter. Wealth hadn't preserved her laughter, but Tunde, a child with nothing, had granted Chioman optimism. For the first occasion, Chief Adebayo admitted to himself, perhaps fortune isn't the supreme power, perhaps compassion is. One Saturday afternoon, Chief Adebayo summoned Tunde to sit with him in the courtyard. For the first occasion, the child wasn't requested to dance. He was requested to converse. "Narrate me about yourself," Chief Adebayo said. Tunde hesitated. Nobody ever inquired about him. Individuals only observed his soiled garments and dismissed him. But Chief Adebayo's gaze was earnest, almost tender. "I don't comprehend where I was birthed. My mother perished when I was little, my father abandoned. Some women at the market granted me sustenance sometimes, but when I matured, they ceased, so I remained with other children at the motor park. We rest beneath the bridge or in stalls if they're vacant." Chief Adebayo listened, his chest constricting. "Why do you dance?" he questioned. Tunde smiled faintly. "When you're hungry, your frame feels heaviness. If you just sit, the starvation triumphs. But if you gesture, if you dance, it feels lighter. Individuals laugh. Sometimes they grant me coins. Sometimes they don't. But at least, at minimum, I don't sense invisible." Chief Adebayo nodded gradually. He had attended the finest institutions, consumed the most exquisite meals, and journeyed the world. Yet seated before him was a child who had acquired life's profoundest truth without any instructor.
"Happiness is power," Chief Adebayo observed. "From today," Chief Adebayo said firmly, "you are not invisible anymore. You are component of this household." Tunde blinked, uncertain if he had perceived correctly, but when Chioma wheeled herself nearer and grasped his palm, smiling broadly, he recognized he was no longer just a child of the avenues. He was becoming family. The authentic turning moment arrived one afternoon that commenced like any other. The sun was humid, the blossoms in the courtyard swayed gently, and Tunde was executing his playful robot dance while Chioma applauded. "I desire to attempt standing," she shouted suddenly, surprising even herself. Tunde ceased mid-move. "What?" "I signify it," she insisted, her tone powerful. Chief Adebayo, seated nearby, tensed. He didn't desire her to strain, but he also understood he couldn't restrain her. Chioma positioned her palms on her wheelchair handles. Her limbs shook, but she didn't cease. She pressed intensely, her expression scrunching in struggle. Gradually, painfully, she elevated. One knee trembled, then the other straightened slightly. She wasn't standing tall, but she was elevated, her feet pressing against the earth, her frame erect for the first occasion since the explosion. Chief Adebayo's pulse slammed in his chest.
The security men at the entrance froze. Even the house helps gasped from a separation. Tunde shouted with happiness, rotating in rounds before collapsing to his knees. "You accomplished it! You're standing, Chioma! You're standing!" Chioma maintains herself there for 3 seconds, her little frame trembling like a leaf in the breeze. Then she descended back gently into the seat. Instead of weeping, she laughed. "I stood! Did you observe me, Papa? I stood!" Chief Adebayo knelt beside her, tears obscuring his vision. He contacted her trembling palms. "I observed, my child, and I have never been more honored." That day, the estate was no longer silent. It roared with laughter, claps, and cheers. The turning moment had arrived, and Chief Adebayo understood it. His daughter's restoration had commenced, and it all initiated with a child who once had nothing but a dance. That evening, long after Chioma had descended asleep, Chief Adebayo sat in the quiet of his study. The documents on his desk were untouched. His phone buzzed with communications, but he disregarded them. His mind was on one matter: Tunde. For weeks, the child had restored vitality to his daughter. She laughed once more. She gestured once more. She existed once more. And tonight, she had stood. Even if only for a few seconds, it was miraculous.
Chief Adebayo understood it was not fortune. It was Tunde. That evening, Chief Adebayo discovered Tunde seated peacefully on the rear steps, his limbs wrapped around his knees, staring into the darkness as though uncertain if he genuinely belonged there. Chief Adebayo lowered himself beside him. "You shouldn't be out here solitary," Chief Adebayo said gently. Tunde gave a small shrug. "I'm accustomed to it, sir." "Not anymore," Chief Adebayo responded, his tone steady, bearing the weight of a pledge. "This is your residence now. You're component of this family. You'll consume 3 meals daily, you'll attend school, and you'll never again have to wonder where to lay your head." Tunde's face widened, his tone trembling as he whispered, "Appreciation, sir." Chief Adebayo turned to face him fully, his own face glistening. "Listen to me, Tunde. I comprehend what you've granted my daughter. You granted her something no wealth, no physician, no medication could provide. Optimism. And anyone who grants optimism is not just worth understanding, they're worth cherishing." For the first occasion in his existence, Tunde felt genuinely observed. His throat constricted and tears slipped down his face. That evening he lay on a comfortable mattress, protected under a roof in a location he could finally title residence. The cold cement evenings of the past were concluded. It didn't require long for the narrative to sweep throughout the city. A powerful millionaire had opened his doors to a child from the avenues. To some, it was an action of reckless sentiment. To others, it was the mark of authentic courage. The newspapers blazed with headlines: "Millionaire Okonkwo adopts street child. City divided between outrage and admiration." Some of Chief Adebayo's business associates pulled him aside. "Chief Adebayo, this will damage your status. A street child in your estate. What if he takes? What if he disgraces you? Consider your reputation." But Chief Adebayo had transformed. He no longer cared for shallow appearances. "My reputation," he said calmly. "My daughter is standing once more. My daughter is smiling once more. That is the only reputation I care about." Chioma herself instructed anyone who questioned her. "Tunde is my companion. He makes me powerful. If you don't appreciate him, you don't cherish me." The voices of doubt grew quieter, because while some mocked, many others admired. Neighbors whispered differently now. Imagine, a child from the avenue is assisting Chioma walk once more. Perhaps compassion is richer than wealth. And in the middle of it all, Tunde remained humble. He didn't care about newspapers or gossip. Every day he just danced. Every day he laughed with Chioma. Every day he granted his gift. The estate that once resonated with silence was now saturated with vitality. Mornings initiated with Chioma calling out for Tunde. Afternoons were saturated with laughter as he performed his foolish routines. Evenings concluded with shared meals, where Chioma teased her father for smiling more often than previously. Gradually, Chioma's rehabilitation improved. With Tunde cheering beside her, she walked small steps, then longer ones. She still utilized her wheelchair at occasions, but fear no longer controlled her. She was existing once more. Chief Adebayo, too, transformed. He was no longer just a millionaire pursuing business ventures. He was a father rediscovering happiness. And with Tunde, he discovered himself acting like a father once more, guiding, instructing, protecting. One day, Chioma gazed at Tunde and whispered, "Now I'm not solitary anymore. I have a brother." Chief Adebayo laughed, but inside his soul swelled with honor. For the first occasion in years, his residence was no longer just an estate. It was a dwelling. One evening, as the sun painted the city sky in gold and crimson, Chief Adebayo stood in the courtyard observing Chioma take careful steps with Tunde securing her palm. The noise of her laughter, mixed with Tunde's playful shouts, saturated the atmosphere. In that moment, Chief Adebayo comprehended something he had never genuinely understood. Wealth was useful, yes, but authentic fortune was not in bank accounts or business ventures. Authentic fortune was in the laughter of his daughter, in the courage of a child who refused to be shattered by the avenues, in the affection that bound them all together. He whispered to himself, "I thought I had everything, but I had nothing until I encountered this child." From that day, Chief Adebayo Okonkwo became recognized not just as a wealthy man, but as a man of heart. Tunde was no longer the homeless child. He was part of the Okonkwo family. And Chioma's story became a beacon of hope for families everywhere. That sometimes the cure we need does not come from medication or wealth, but from love, compassion, and unexpected companionship. If this story touched you, let us know in the comments and narrate us where in the world you're watching from. Don't forget to subscribe to Folktales by Olivia for more emotional, dramatic, and unforgettable narratives. Until next occasion, stay compassionate, stay powerful, and keep watching.